Okay. Hello, Barbara. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us here on this very special day, 1st of March, the Future Day. And I know you're coming from future. You're already living in the future. Your work is in the future. And we're very happy to have you here with us. So before we start with your presentation, I would like to share a few comments and ideas about what you're doing. But if you would like to say hello, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Kasim, for the nice introduction. And I'm really happy to be here on the Future Day on the 1st of March. And we'll be speaking later on space futures.
Okay. So as we know from your past and present work, first of all, you are a well-known, internationally well-known space architect. This is a new job, new business, new profession, because if you said to someone being a space artist like 50 years ago, that would have been a different, probably a comic book, okay? So this guy wants to be a space architect, but now you are one. That makes it something special. And also your company, Lookifer team, is working on specially designed space projects. And you are very well known for the project that you designed for the colonization in Mars, the planet Mars. So also a few things I noticed here. Design the International Habitat Module for the Lunar Orbital Platform Gateway. Okay, that's a very specific project. Maybe you will talk it in your presentation, maybe not, but these are some significant information about you. And you recently lead a 3D printing project, Regolite, right? Correct. That is quite impressive. Exploring how to build 3D printed lunar habitats. So maybe you should also start doing it on Earth too. It's an interesting project.
Yes.
You can make a very good business because everyone needs something like that. So before we start, I have a question. I understand, I expect that many of people think about this question right now, since you're so much concentrated on the Mars. Are you going to go to Mars?
Well, I think so you already mentioned it, the Lunar Gateway project, which is the next International Space Station orbiting the moon. And we are working on the design of the interior for the habitat module. And I think if I could get a free ticket, then I probably would go there and check it out to see, whatever will have designed, if that is a good environment to work in, and maybe, maybe take a step on the lunar surface.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for your sincere answer. Please, so it's all yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Barbara Imhof. I'm a space architect and I'm a co-managing director of Liquifer Systems Group. We are an interdisciplinary team. So we have engineers, space engineers, scientists, architects and designers working on it. And together with my two partners, Waltraud Hoheneder and René Václavicek, they are both architects. We have been working in the field of space exploration for quite a while. We celebrated our 15th anniversary last year. So since then, we have been working on diverse projects in the area of human spaceflight. But I'd like to start a little bit with a sort of historic, look back. I would call this picture, it's a photograph from 1960, The Edge of Space. And here you see on August 16th, 1960, Joseph Kittinger, he jumped from the edge of space as part of Project Excelsior. And I would consider this as the precursor activity of human spaceflight. as he climbed to an altitude of 31 kilometers, where the sky above you is already black. Just imagine. So what you see is complete blackness. There's no air anymore. So he wears this, you see, he wears this pressure suit. There's no pressure around you. And at this point, you have reached the final boundary at 31 kilometers, very close. Just, I think Istanbul is probably, you know, larger than that. At this point, you have reached the final boundary which separates the stratosphere, the uppermost layer of the Earth's atmosphere, from space. And when he jumped out of the gondola, his speed accelerated to beyond the sound barrier. And he recorded, "I fell face to earth for a little ways, and I really had no sensation of falling. I turned over on my back about this time, and I looked up, and the balloon above me was racing into heavens." So it's a sort of upward fall. He fell towards space, despite the fact that he was actually racing towards Earth. And the upward fall, was described by Ronald Jones in his article, "Things That Cannot Be." So today, we are 61 years later after the first jump from space, and we are in 2021. And just 2 weeks ago, you probably are aware of the fact that the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory mission, Mars 2020, successfully landed. And at the same time, we have a couple of efforts, a couple of countries, nations exploring Mars, also the United Arab Emirates, China, India, there's still an orbiter, European orbiter. So Mars as the sort of furthest away planetary surface where we can imagine that humans one day might settle. This is sort of the span between the boundary of space from the Earth's atmosphere and Mars. This is where we as space architects probably operate. So space architecture is the extended field of architecture. And we have been, as Liquifa, working on projects for the International Space Station, which is the only established and since more than 20 years permanently inhabited outpost beyond the Earth's atmosphere. And we work for projects in extreme environments, the moon, or as I mentioned before, the Lunar Gateway, which is an orbit around the moon. And also we look into Martian designs, but also in extreme environments on Earth. And so in the following presentation, a couple of minutes, I'd like to give you, a little bit of an overview of our projects. So one, which is quite interesting, is the SHE habitat. It's the self-deployable habitat for extreme environments. It was a 6-partner project in the European Union Framework Program. It was led by the International Space University. We were the technical coordinators. And SHE is interesting because it actually, what it does is, you can imagine that it's not only meant for space, being an outpost of first habitat on the Martian surface or on the lunar surface, but it can also serve as an autonomous unit on Earth, for example, in extreme environments, in Antarctica, but probably also as a high-tech unit like a hospital for disaster relief. So you already see that, designing for space is incorporating Earth because we are traveling in space. And as Buckminster Fuller said, it's spaceship Earth. So the important thing, or the special thing about SHE, is that it was a transportable habitat. I apologize, my slides go haywire. It's a transportable habitat, and you can sort of also put 2 SHE habitats back to back into a large rocket. But it was designed for Earth to actually simulate space missions and to train astronauts for future missions on the moon and on Mars. What you can also see is the interior. It was quite because in respect to other simulation habitats at that time, it was quite well furnished. We had it done for a crew of 2. Here you see also Waltraud Hoheneder and René Václavicek, my 2 business partners. And you can see that actually it has incorporates a workspace and some noise isolation parts. It incorporates a hygiene facility. As you can see here, it's all foldable and deployable. It has a crew quarter for each of the 2-person crew, and a galley, a sort of communal area, so a private area and a communal area where people come together. The interesting thing is that, or when you think about deployability, is it's so that the shell is deployable, as you can see here, but also the furniture, everything you see, these are the beds. So even everything has to be foldable and has to be compactable. So it has, in this configuration, it has 28 square meters and half of it when it's stowed. So it can really double its size. We had an opportunity to also test it as part of Project Moonwalk in Rio Tinto, another EU project where the German Center for Artificial Intelligence was the lead, and we were responsible for the payload of this little rover, but also bringing She there and for astronaut tools, because it was about testing the cooperation between a small rover and an astronaut and how they can explore together an unknown surface. And we were also lucky to have She as the habitat as part of it. So here you see how on a steep rope, basically a small rover can help the exploration. We also had not only myself, but also my colleague René Václavicek, we had both the opportunity to serve as simulation astronauts, which it was important to us to learn also from the other side how it is to be simulation astronaut, to train and to be trained. This is a project Regolite, as Kasim was mentioning, introducing before. This is interesting because it's really looking at resources locally available on the moon, like the sand you see here, but also the sun, because the moon has no atmosphere, and how it can be sort of made through additive layer manufacturing into, and solar sintering into 3-dimensional interlocking elements. So this is, we were looking at these flat ground stabilizing elements, but also 3-dimensional elements to build habitats, shelters, telescope terrains, or launch pads. And this is called solar sintering. So with only the sun and the sand, you can actually really create a habitat. You have to shield on the lunar surface because there's only vacuum. You have to shield from micrometeorites and from radiation. And that's why you have to, you look here, you have to create these kind of shelters. And then inside you need a pressure vessel. You see here a pressure shell so astronauts can live in. So here you see the different, how a lunar base is being built up. So let me see if I can sort of stop the play button. No, we are using hard shells and then these other pressure parts and then layers of these interlocking elements to create this kind of base. So you see that just one step back, I apologize for this, that these base parts, these elements, they can also become a larger base. So what you see here are 3D printing campaigns, space application services under the lead of the German aerospace. We were one partner responsible for geometries, but space application services, they built these printers. We tested them in different environments. So we tested them in a vacuum, which is on the moon, the appropriate environment. There's a 3D printer in it. We also tested it with a moving lens, a Fresnel lens, and then with a mirror which focused and centered the solar beam onto that onto the sand. So this is how you can imagine there are three campaigns for printing, and here you actually see how a sintered element looked like. You also see that there's still regarding integrity and of the material itself, there's still some technology readiness level to be raised. So this is actually shows many of our projects, but it also shows Moon or Mars-based elements. And you can see here that we have projects which more related to stationary elements on the top left, then projects that they are more connected to mobile elements like rovers or rovers like caravans. You can also, astronauts can also move in, and then EVA systems. EVA stands for extravehicular activity, so moonwalks in that sense. And we have also a lot of, you see that on the bottom right, a lot of experience with in situ resource utilization, ISRU, that's what you see here, or 3D printing technologies. So this is in the last 15 years a sample of our projects. And one which is quite important in that sense, it's also mentioned here, you need a place to live, but you also need food. And a large project, and it's still in Antarctica. It was the Eden ISS project. It's also an EU project as part of the Horizon 2020 program led by the German Aerospace Center in Bremen. And it's a 14-partner project, so a lot of different people came together to build it. We were responsible for a lot of definitions of requirements, but also some interior aspects and the communication. So this is it's two containers basically. This is more the service section, and here's the greenhouse. You get a glimpse of it on the next slide, and it was. It yielded. It's still there. It's, I think, the 4th year now in Antarctica, next to the German Neumayer 3 station, and we harvested in one season, in 9 months, nearly 300 kilograms of vegetables. So here you see the inside, and before the harvest, it looks quite like a jungle. I have to say, you see the salad here on the top left growing. But you can also see that there's some Swiss chard here. There are cucumbers here. There are some tomatoes being grown, and this is the Paul Zabel from the German Aerospace Center in Bremen. He spent a whole winter, a whole year in Antarctica, and you also see that when he lifts the lids of the boxes, that there are the roots underneath. So it's an aeroponic system, needing only very little material, no soil. Just every 10 minutes it gets sprayed with nutrition, the roots which are in the darkness of that box. And so it's a very efficient system, and the lights are special LED lights and special light spectrum. And so it's all tuned to be very efficient, hence the 300 kilos in 9 months. So these systems are especially interesting because we can also learn with them, from them, for space applications. And there are many systems which fall into the direction of life support systems. So like biospheric system, like waste management, or the food, vertical farm, food systems, that means nutrition, energy systems, recycling of water, recycling of air, which is so inherent and so important for space missions, but it's equally important for our more and more denser cities on terrestrial grounds. And in this way, we never think of space as something, far away, but it's sort of, there's no line to be drawn. And, we as astronauts of Spaceship Earth, we are just part of space, and space is all around us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Barbara. It is such an inspiring presentation.
I'm sorry, these slides acted up a little bit, so I don't know.
Oh, sorry. Okay, now you can see me.
Yes, now I can see you.
Good, good. I was saying that it is such an inspirational presentation, because what you said, the last sentence, is very important for us. Space is not so far away for us. So if you just look at the last slide, this is Vienna.
Yes.
Next generation.
In the future. It's absolutely in the future. Yes. Because you see a space elevator going up to space.
That's true. And, and that space elevator reminds me of a book. It's in English, written in 1934. Unfortunately, I don't remember the writer, but this is a very old book. I'll send you the visuals. It really exactly explains this project. There is this small cabin, and there's a whole contact to the moon. And so that's the job to be done on the moon. That's quite interesting. Anyways, well, first of all, thank you very much. It is such a vision that you brought with yourself. And I think after this presentation, many people will look at this. What is Mars? What is life? What is colonization? It's going to be different. Now, I have two questions on the chat. First one is exactly what I was trying to say. The question by Caner Ekmekçi is being, living in space as human community necessary? What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I think it's very important. I mean, you can already see that when, a small crew or a small group of people basically goes, on a camping trip or so, or maybe, somewhere in the wilderness. I think the dependence, upon each other becomes very vital. And it's a matter of survival to work together well, and to also form a community which is, prosperous or well-doing.
Yeah, well, that's true. And I know that you spent some time in the polar area, Antarctic, just to have a similar living conditions for your project. And so this is going to happen. Now everyone is certain about that, because, the American companies, the entrepreneurs, they're pushing it very hard, and it's going to happen. And probably plus minus some time off the targeted schedule, but it's going to happen. And there are already so many people signed a contract just to go there with one-way ticket. Really, they're even ready not to come back, because that's the good.
Yes, I think it mostly draws on the vision that we will once settle somewhere else. And then, of course, when we, in the far future, when we, have the option, the possibility, for example, to settle on Mars, then these communities will be independent and will probably develop their own culture, their own social system, and that probably would be different. And then children who would be born on Mars, they would refer to their home as on Mars, of course, and not on Earth anymore.
True. I just would like to add one sentence to what you said. This is a very good picture, but of course we always have this small risico, how to arrange everything. Same as in Earth or different than in Earth, So that's a small question, the one which we have, the artificial intelligence, technology, big data, the same ethical question. But I know it's nothing to be afraid of. We have to be aware. We have to be very taking it into consideration, the precautions, and then I think we are able to reach this so-called positively designed future also on Mars for the human being. There is another small question. Dilek Vatansever wrote, which material used for architect design space area for people? Solid state physics is very important, so which material suit with space conditions? Can you say something about that?
I'm not sure what he means, but let's start maybe here. So the space station is comprised of metal alloys, tin cans, basically cylindric modules, and they have to be very tight. They are sometimes milled from one piece so that there's no sealing, no welding to be done. So they have, because they really have to be tight. Another option would be, the she habitat probably would also be, the shell would be done with, with metal alloys, but then the ceilings, in between, they have to be, done differently. So sort of flexible, pneumatic ceilings, but done from a material which can withstand these harsh environments on Earth. And then let's go a little bit further. When we look at this picture, we see that that actually against radiation shielding, so that the cosmic radiation, but also the meteoroids and micrometeoroids. So there are constant showers of micrometeoroids because the moon has no atmosphere. We also need to protect ourselves from these. So we need a very thick envelope just for this, and sand, heavy material can do that, and we can build up, this kind of shelter. And then in between, we might have either these metal alloys for pressure shells, or we might have, as we see here, inflatable modules for the other for the pressure shells. And then maybe I have a spacesuit picture here. And the inflatable modules, they're sort of a little bit built like these spacesuits in different layers of Kevlar and Nomex and beta cloth, and pressure restraining, like a diving suit, not similar to that. Materials in layers, many layers. For contingency. So these are the materials you use for the outside shell. And inside you use a lot of Nomex.
Okay, good. That's a good list. Now, just another question before we go. Kerem Tabu says, as far as he knows, human bones getting lower their density over the time in space due to the lack of gravity. We're able to reach Moon, Mars, etc., to make colony in a different environment. His question is, in the long future, how many years do we wait to adapt humans' body to environment? Or will we produce different organs by using improved printing technology?
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. I think I would see a couple of scenarios. So one, of course, on space station, each astronaut trains 2 hours a day to keep the bone density strong, and to also work, try to keep the muscles also as many as possible, or not to have them decay too easily. But of course, when we go to the moon, we also will need to exercise. On Mars, it's the same thing. There is another option. I'm sure the Werner von Braun's A Space Odyssey 2001, Stanley Kubrick's movie, with the rotation of of the space station. So
yeah.
with that, we can create artificial gravity, and with that, probably we can, you know, be in a for long term in an orbit or travel to Mars or further. And regarding the human adaptation, because ideally, you know, we would look like an octopus. That would be an ideal, you know, for zero gravity, ideal sort of concept. Many arms, and we don't need legs anymore in that sense, but we need a lot of arms. But I think that is, you know, thousands, millions of years, you know, of human evolution. But with technology, of course, we probably could, you know, could optimize ourselves a little bit more in that direction.
Good. Okay. Last question, maybe a short answer. Can we create an atmosphere in Mars with oxygen? Is that possible? O2.
These are big questions. It's hard to give a short answer.
Okay, no, okay, then don't give it. But you know,
maybe I can say we can extract probably a little bit of oxygen from the atmosphere, but there's not a lot available.
Okay.
And again, this is like a long-term project.
Okay, so well, I would like to share with you that we are also interested in carrying on such similar presentations probably in the near future. So we would like to stay in touch with you, probably make a series, whatever. So we would like to do that. And so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was great being there.
Thank you. It was our pleasure. It was we're honored that you're here. And let's see how many people will sign up for the trip to Mars after your presentation.
Okay. Have a good afternoon.
Yeah,
bye-bye. Bye-bye from Vienna. Bye-bye. Yeah.